There was Dio, the one, who in the 70s made power metal, from which the Blind Guardian would be born. And so it was that in 1998, Blind Guardian would make in harmony a great music based upon J.R.R. Tolkien's The Silmarillion. And it came to pass that Nightfall in Middle-earth was released. Nightfall in Middle-earth opens with the Silmarillion's ending. We hear a conversation between Sauron and his master Morgoth. Sauron is informing Morgoth that their ace in the sleeve in Caligan, the biggest dragon in the history of all of Arda, was just slain, and his fall destroyed a group of 3 volcanoes called Thangorodrim. Their dragon was killed by a half-elf named Erendil, who you will come to recognize as Elrond's father. Morgoth tells Sauron to get out while he still can, and reminisces about the good old days with Shelob's mom, whose name we find out is Ungoliant, and that time that Morgoth and Ungoliant destroyed 2 trees that provided all the light in Arda. Now we go all the way back to the beginning of Chapter 8 of the Silmarillion, detailing the second time Melkor destroyed the light as referenced at the end of the last track. Basically, Melkor was being a really bad Vala, because he wasn't a fan of the song that Eru tried to force him to sing. So he broke some lamps and started turning elves into orcs, and all the Valar were not okay with this. So they put him in angel jail for 3 ages. Then Melkor told the other Valar that he had changed. We've all heard that one before, but these angels were mere babies at this point, so they believed him. And of course, he lied. He was actually more eviler than he ever was. He's back, and this time he's mad. He teams up with Ungoliant and makes a plan to destroy the 2 trees that the other Valar care a lot about. They succeed in poisoning the trees, and on top of this, they steal the titular gems known as the Silmarils, which are special gems that were made by an elf named Feanor, using some of the light of the special trees. The song itself is an argument between Ungoliant and Melkor. Ungoliant wants the Silmarils as payment for destroying the trees, and Melkor wants the Silmarils because he likes that they are shiny. In this short track, Ungoliant bites Melkor because he won't give her any of the Silmarils, and we hear Melkor scream, which was so loud that it alerts all of the Balrogs that their master is in trouble, so they come up from underground and chase Ungoliant away. Also, it is said the scream was so loud it echoes through the region of Lamoth forever. In this track, we're back in Valinor, where Ungoliant just killed the 2 trees. Everything is really dark now that the trees of light aren't around anymore, thus the name Nightfall, and everyone is really upset. The Valar tell Feanor they have to use the light from the Silmarils he made in order to save the trees, but Feanor cares about nothing as much as the Silmarils, and he doesn't really trust the Valar. Then he finds out Melkor committed the first murder ever by killing King of the Noldor and Feanor's dad, Finwë, and stole the Silmarils from him. This is when Feanor gives Melkor the name Morgoth. Feanor swears an oath with his 7 sons that they will get the Silmarils back at any cost. So they slew some of their kin in order to steal their boats, so they could sail off north to Middle-earth where Morgoth was hanging out. One of Feanor's sons, named Maglor, was a great minstrel who made a song called The Fall of the Noldor. In this song, we find out the doomsman of the Valar, Mandos, pronounced that Feanor's rebellion would result in failure, with a warning known as the Doom of Mandos. Also, Feanor understands he's done some pretty evil stuff, but he sees it all as worth it in order to get revenge on Morgoth. Then Feanor gets mortally wounded by a Balrog at the Battle Under the Stars, and realizes that the prophecy was true, there was no hope, and he dies. But his soul is so angry it burns to ash. And the curse of Feanor, we find out, says that the elves who die trying to get the Silmarils back will be trapped in the Hall of Mandos forever, instead of ever getting to be elves again. Morgoth offers terms of peace to the elves, but upon arrival to their meeting, Feanor's son and current king of the Noldor, Maethros, was betrayed and captured by Morgoth, who tied him by the wrist to a cliff of Thangorodrim. Maethros, being an immortal elf, has a really bad time hanging on this cliff for 30 years, but his best friend Fingon finds him and they sing a duet together. Fingon can't free him, so Maethros asks his friend to kill him. But before he does, it turns out Thorindor, king of the eagles, had heard his call for mercy, and he helps Fingon cut off his friend's hand to rescue him. And for this, Maethros makes Fingon's dad Fingolfin king of the Noldor. This song also references the end of the Silmarillion, when Maethros and Maglor tried to take the Silmarils back from Eonwë at the end of the War of Wrath. But to do so required them to kill the gods protecting the Silmarils, and because of this they were cursed so that touching the gems would burn their hands. So Maethros cast himself into a fiery chasm, and Maglor cast himself into the sea with the other Silmaril. This track refers to Turgon, son of Fingolfin, who the Vala of Water Ulmo reveals in a dream the Vale of Timladin, and in the middle of the vale is a steep hill where Turgon builds the city of Gondolin, and they had a hidden pass protected by a 7-layer gate. Ulmo informs Turgon that his will be the last realm to fall to darkness, but that true hope is across the sea in Valinor. The city was hidden by Ulmo, and Turgon stayed out of the war with Melkor. Then the Battle of Unnumbered Tears occurs. Gondolin sends out a force, but the elves were still soundly defeated. However, after the aftermath of the battle, Morgoth did require some time to collect his troops. Then we find out about an elf named Maeglin who betrays Turgon and reveals the city of Gondolin to Morgoth, thus leading to the fall of the city, during which Erendil's parents Tuor the man and Idril the elf heed Ulmo's warning and escape with some survivors through the hidden pass. The moon first appears after Fingolfin crosses the ice desert Helcaraxe to get to Middle-earth. Fingolfin brought hope in the form of another army, but lies and treachery in the form of more sufferers of the doom of Mandos. While Feanor has a comfy boat ride across Middle-earth in the neat ship that he stole, his half-brother Fingolfin has to trek across the icy wastes of Helcaraxe and Armin. And we get another reminder that no matter how far the Noldor go, the doom of Mandos will always follow them. The elves reminisce of Cuivian, where they were awakened, and back when everything was simple. And we find out that Fingolfin had to go across the ice desert, because Feanor burned all the boats once he reached Middle-earth, and Fingolfin knows that he can't return to Valinor because he too partook in the kinslaying of the Teleri. Finrod, the brother of Galadriel, is saved at the Battle of Sudden Flame by a man named Barahir of House Beor. In the battle, Morgoth created Glaurung, the first dragon, and used rivers of flame to decimate the elf host. Fingolfin is without hope, and at this point is still mad about everything he's had to endure since leaving Valinor. So he rides up to the black gates of Morgoth and challenges him to single combat. Fingolfin blares his horn so loudly all of Morgoth's servants can hear it, and Morgoth does come out to face him, wearing the iron crown with the 3 Silmarils set in it. Morgoth swings his hammer Grond and knocks over Fingolfin 3 times before ultimately killing him by crushing him under his boot. Eol, a relative of Thingol, king of the Teleri, hated the Noldor, and was the father of Maeglin, whose betrayal caused the fall of Gondolin. This piece depicts Maeglin's journey and capture and torture by Morgoth, and ultimately his decision to betray his kin and reveal the city of Gondolin. Morgoth promises to make him king of the city and offers him his cousin Idril, with whom he is in love. And his father, we find out, used magic to manipulate Aradel, the daughter of Fingolfin, to become his wife. Finrod, older than both the sun and moon, leaves a final farewell to his people after sustaining mortal wounds caused by a werewolf attack that he was trying to save the human Baron from, and in doing so fulfills his life debt to the House of Beor.
Thus he died.
Nom the Wise is the name of Finrod given by the dwarves. He was the king of the underground city of Nargothrond, and unlike most other elves, he was a friend of man. This song is about Lúthien's lament. Lúthien was an elf princess who died after losing her will to live when her lover Beren died. But she loved Beren so much and sang a song so sad that Mandos himself checked in with the man upstairs and offered Lúthien a choice to either chillax forever in elf afterlife to eventually forget about Beren, or to become immortal alongside Beren. She chose the latter. If you've watched the extended editions, you may recall Aragorn singing the lay of Lúthien in the Midgewater marshes. This track refers to Dorfirn I Gwynar, the realm Beren and Lúthien lived in after they returned from the dead. Morgoth names himself King of Middle-earth after winning the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, and Hurin, uncle of Tuor, refuses to give up the location of Gondolin. So Morgoth curses his family to misery and hopelessness. The humans, referred to as the children of the sun, because they came to the world after the sun was created, are questioned for not following to the corrupting powers of Morgoth, despite awakening in Middle-earth, the realm of Morgoth. In this track, Hurin is chained atop Thangorodrim, where through the powers of Morgoth he is capable of seeing the evils that befell his son Turin, who he watched fall in love with Nienor. Alas, they would come to find out they were brother and sister and subsequently killed themselves. Also referenced is Hurin's battle cry, "Day shall come again," which was said to be heard over 70 times over the course of the battle.
Thus ends the fifth.
During the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, Maethros fought in an alliance of man, elf, and dwarf, known as the Union of Maethros. But they were betrayed by the Easterling men they fought alongside of, who were secretly in league with Morgoth. But hope still lives with Erendil, who will save the day at the end, and will take the last Silmarillion into the sky and create the Star of High Hope. This song tells the story of when Turin killed Glaurung and broke the spell of amnesia Nienor, the Tear Maiden, was cursed with, and she finds out that she had a kid with her brother. She also thinks Turin is dead, so she throws herself into a ravine. Turin wakes up and is told the truth by a guy named Brandir, But he doesn't believe him, so he kills Brandir. Then Tyrion finds out from a man named Mablung that Brandir was actually telling the truth. So Tyrion throws himself on his sword. Overall, there's a severe lack of dwarves, but there's a lot of elves getting their comeuppance. For that, I give Nightfall in Middle Earth a 9 out of 10.